Keap, formerly known as Infusionsoft, is an all-in-one CRM and marketing automation system really geared at the needs of small businesses. From contact management to automated email campaigns, appointment scheduling, invoicing, and even built-in payments, Keap promises to bring everything you need to run and grow a service business into one streamlined system. But does Keap live up to this promise? In this video, we're going to take a look at Keap's core features. We'll talk about its pricing, its ease of use, its pros, and its cons. Ultimately, we want you to be able to decide if it meets the needs for your business. Hey, I'm Dan Lehman from SoftwareFinds.com. Come on over and check out our website where we have lots of reviews and comparisons. We've built special tools in the system to help you determine which characteristics are most important in these platforms for you. We've got lots of different visualizations to help you compare them as well. Let's go ahead and dive into Keap. So the first thing that we'll see when we log in is our dashboard. And our dashboard is pre-configured for us. We do have a couple of options. We can manage these widgets. We can turn off certain ones that we don't want, and we can move them around on the screen if we want them to appear in a different order. But overall, we can't create our own dashboards. We can't create our own widgets. We're pretty limited to what's already there. Next, let's take a look at our contact management. So here under contacts, I'm going to see people, companies, and groups. And people can both be our contacts and our leads, really any kind of people that we have in the system. Now, I'll be honest, this list of leads, my contacts that I have here, is about the most limited that I've seen in any CRM system. Instead of displaying a grid where I can configure what properties of those contacts that I want to see, this really seems like this is optimized for mobile as opposed to an actual desktop screen, which I'm on. So to not be able to see their company or their industry or any other information from this view of leads is pretty frustrating. If I click into a lead or a contact, then we get to this screen. This is going to show us all the pertinent information activity-wise about our contacts. We can see this in a couple different views, one that's more condensed and one that shows our timeline of this. And this is really handy. We've got the ability to send text messages. We can send emails. Both of those are going to occur within the platform. We can actually have our own dedicated phone number that we can text from. We can hook it up to our email. So if I want to connect to Gmail and email from here, all of that information is going to sit in this one activity area. On the right-hand side, we can see information about our contact, including a map. We can view that larger if we want to. And so we've got a nice, pretty streamlined approach to view all the information. I do like that it's easy to be able to add a task or a note and automatically have that associated back with our contact. Moving ahead to our pipeline management, it's really strange to me that our pipeline is located under My Day. If we click on sales, it's not actually listed in the sales area. We have a shortcut over to My Day. Our pipeline is a really streamlined Kanban board. We can easily add new deals. And initially it seems like, okay, there's not quite enough fields here, but I really like how they streamline this. So we enter in the key information. And then later, once we've created it, now we can expand this. We can see all of our different stages. We can do things like, let's convert this to a quote. It's going to pull in our information already about that customer. We can add then our line items, plug all this information in to go then through the quote to invoice process. If we go back into our deal, we can also configure how this looks if we want to manage the fields and the layout. So here we can add fields, including our own custom fields, and we can choose from several different field types as well. We can do that too on the contacts and companies. You might find yourself wanting to create additional pipelines, and you can do that where you name the pipeline and then create the different outcomes. And we can configure our stages as well as actually automate them if we want to have automations based on when new deals move in and out of those stages. We have a few different ways to be able to interact with our contacts and our leads at the top of the funnel. One of the ways we can do that is with appointment scheduling. So if you already use a tool like Calendly, you can replace that within Keap. You can create multiple different calendars. So here I have a couple for different consultations and different coaching calls that people can book directly. So here you can see it's a pretty nice layout. It connects already to my Google Calendar, so it knows which time slots I'm available. We can put in parameters if we want to say 15 minutes after that call, and then people are able to book that with their information. Now, I wasn't able to find a feature to actually charge for those consultation calls. In some other CRM systems, we can actually have a payment link attached to that call in order for us to be able to schedule it. Then you have to pull out your credit card and pay for it. Another way we can have our leads come to us is via forms. We can create our own forms here. They could be internal if we want to pick up the phone and when we talk to the person, then we actually fill out the form ourselves, or this could be a public form. And I just realized as I held up my hand for a phone, this makes me really old since, of course, everybody has their cell phones. Here on the form, we can add any fields that we want. We can maintain our own branding. We can create new fields, including custom fields that we want to be mapped to our contact. We can style some basic colors with the buttons in the background. We can add automations, such as adding a follow-up email to the form submission, and we can redirect to a page that we want it to go to, as well as add it to our website with this little code snippet. Now, if you want to get a little bit more robust than just the forms themselves, you can create landing pages. This is nice, especially if your marketing team is not really technical. You don't want them to have to actually go into your website settings and configure it there. Here, now you've got a nice drag and drop builder so that they can design their own landing pages. And if you lack design skills like I do, you can choose from pre-existing templates, and you can use these blocks to make it much easier in the building process. And similarly to the landing pages, there's a drag and drop email builder as well. Again, funny to me from a navigational standpoint that email marketing is not listed under marketing. Instead, email broadcasts are listed under comms or communications. So we can create a new email broadcast. I like how simple this is from a campaign setup. So who's it coming from? Who are we sending it to? Let's determine the schedule for this. And we can do this right away or at a specific time. And then we can create our content. Now, this works well both for marketing and sales use cases. Marketing being we have an event coming up and we want to choose from one of these templates. Or if we want to have this be an automated process, we're sending text emails to our clients and we're making it look like we're sending just a personalized message, we can use text as well. And selecting a template is going to take us into an experience very much like our landing page builder. Now, emails, even though they're listed as email broadcasts, meaning I click it once and send it to a whole bunch of people, we can also create automations to trigger these emails when people come to certain stages. Now, I think, in my opinion, that Keap's automation builder is one of the best features of the entire platform. And the reason for this is that many platforms include an automation builder, and it's either way simple or way too complex, and there's never this happy middle ground. So small businesses who have never done automation before say, whoa, I'm really overwhelmed, and this is way too sophisticated for my use cases. Or businesses who really need automation say, hey, this is really basic. I can only automate a couple things within the system. So what does Keap decide to do? They give you the best of both worlds. They have basically two different building experiences, whether you want easy automations or you have much more sophisticated needs. So let's take a look for a second at an easy automation. And this is just basically a trigger and a couple of actions. So when this occurs, like a public form being submitted, let's use our contact form, then we're going to do one or a couple of actions. We want to send an email, send a notification internally, create a new deal in our pipeline. Let's try an email. We could tap into our booking link. We could use AI features here, and we can add merge fields here, choosing from our contact so that we can choose like a first name and have this be personalized to the people in our contact list. So those are easy automations, good for simple things. But take a look at this on the other hand. This is the more advanced automation builder. We can actually have multiple different triggers that we want. We could drag these to our canvas. Here we can add notes. We've got multiple conditions, branching logic. We've got this nice interface to actually be able to move components around on the screen. And we've got a ton of relevant triggers and actions. So not just things like form submissions, but things like appointments being booked, or a quote status changing, or a product being purchased, or a task being checked off. Lots of different ways we can trigger this. And then same thing with our actions. We've got several different choices here as well. Now, previously, when we were talking about deal management, we took that deal and converted it to a quote. We can do the same thing here if we want to take this quote and then convert it to a new invoice. From here, this easily copies over all of the information. We could make any changes if anything's happened between the quote and the actual invoicing process. We've got multiple payment options. We can accept credit cards or PayPal, and we can also do card on file. Now that's if we want to create an invoice from that standard deal to quote to invoice flow. But we could also create our own checkout forms. And so these would be if you want to just sell a service or a product directly from your website, Then you can fill this in with all the information that you need. You can choose any fields to add, give it its own styling. Again, we can add automations. And so now you've got a quick way. If you just need some light e-commerce functionality, people come to your website, you want them to purchase some kind of program. Maybe you're a coach and you want them to be able to check out and then you auto deliver them things or put them into a sequence. There's a lot you can do with this order and automation functionality. Likewise, we can set up recurring payments. So we can choose our contacts, choose our payment type, select that this is a recurring payment, and now we can choose the frequency. So do we want to charge them once a month? And then when do we want to end those payments? Now, no CRM is truly complete without a mobile application. So let's take a look at this. I'm on an Android phone right now. I'm looking at my contacts. We do have this area for communication. So once we actually set up the texting functionality, we can do that directly in the phone. From here, I can click on an individual contact or lead, and this is going to take us to that overview screen again. The one part that you'll see here, even in my own phone, is that my details aren't loading. And that's the main negative part about this, is that a lot of people report some glitchiness and bugs within the application. So I'm experiencing this here myself. We've got appointments so that we can take a look at sending these out. We also have my actual schedule here. We can take a look at any tasks and do task management out of it. And we've got this plus button where we can add things like book a new appointment, add tasks. A nice little Easter egg feature here is that we can scan business cards. So maybe you're at a trade show, you want to be able to scan that in automatically. Reporting here in Keap is not a huge strength. We have some sales reports and some contact tracker reports, but we can't actually build our own. These reports, if we click into them, are very kind of old school report lists of things rather than some really nice visualizations. Now back in our pipeline, we do see this new tab for analytics, which signals that some new reports are coming soon to help us better track our sales pipeline. When it comes to customizing or extending Keap, we've already talked about custom fields. You can add those custom fields to your deals and your contacts and your companies, but you can't have custom objects. So if you want to track a unique object, something like a subscription, and you have different activation keys for those subscriptions, there's really no way to track that inside of the system. Now, the automations, like we talked about, are really powerful, but if you want to go outside of what the system can do by itself, you can also use Keap's API, which is pretty powerful. Now, the integration library for Keap is relatively small in the big scheme of things. There's some good options. Of course, we've got our calendar and our email, whether you use Google or the Microsoft ecosystem. We can connect to QuickBooks. That's always a big one. We've got some other forms and ad tools here that you might want to connect to as well. But overall, a smaller library of integrations compared to other CRMs and marketing automation tools. So the nice part is that they do have a Zapier integration if you want to be able to create your own integrations. So here we can take a look at the triggers available to us, and we can see we've got a number of options, new appointments, new tasks, new events, etc. We can scroll down that list. Now, a lot of that is really focused on new things as opposed to updated. So we've got a few limitations here. And then we click into our actions and we can see we can do a handful of these: create companies, create invoices, notes, a number of options. Although one of the things that I find pretty limiting is just that you can't really update a lot of things. So yes, we can, say, hey, here's a new lead from another system and feed it into Keap, or here's a new lead from Keap and we feed it into another system. But we do have some limitations around this Zapier integration. Next, let's talk about pricing. And this is a pretty hot button topic when it comes to Keap. If you're at this point in the video, you're probably going to come out of this knowing that absolutely Keap is the best fit for you, or that you want to look at other options because the pricing is very unique. We do not have per user pricing as it traditionally exists. So a lot of CRM companies charge for individual users. They'll say, hey, one user license is $20 per user per month. How many users do you have? And then they'll break things down by tiers. So maybe it's $20 per user on the cheapest tier, and then $40, and then $60. So you have kind of this matrix that's created. Marketing automation systems, on the other hand, often charge by the number of contacts that you actually market to inside of the system. So Keap is in kind of a unique position to determine how do they want to do pricing if it's both CRM and marketing automation. So they decide to do away with the per user model, and they just charge a flat fee. Now, it does change based on the number of users that you have and the number of contacts that you have. And both of these scale linearly. So for example, our minimum number of users is 2. Now that doesn't really mean anything. You could think of it as 1 user, but in reality, you're still paying the $250 a month for that on the annual plan. So if you're going month to month, the smallest plan you can have on here, because there's no free plan, the smallest plan that you have is basically $300 a month. So like I said, this scales linearly. So it's about $30 per additional user here. And so that scales up. And then regardless of the number of users that you have, they're also going to charge you based on the contacts that you have that you're marketing to inside of the application. So it's kind of good, kind of bad, and it really just depends on the needs of your company. So the good news is that if you're a medium-sized small business, you might not end up paying quite as much on other plans that tier you, meaning that as you grow, you need more functionality, so you're paying both for the number of users as well as the different tiers of the pricing plans. So I love the fact that you don't really have to worry about what pricing plan you're on. You get basically all of the functionality regardless of the size of your business. But if you're just starting out and it's just you or you have a couple people on your team, this is a really hefty price tag compared to a lot of the other options on the market. So it's not to say that's a bad decision. You get a ton of functionality baked within the product. Just be prepared that you're going to be paying that $3,000 per year right off the bat to lock in the best pricing as a very small company. The other thing here is that you have required implementation services to help you achieve faster results. Now, this in my mind has always been a little bit controversial. On one hand, it's a really positive thing because these software companies know that if you never take the time to actually implement a system and make it work for you, that you are going to churn after the first months or first year of use. You're going to leave the platform. You're going to say, this really doesn't work for my business, and I hope there's something better out there for me. So they know if they tailor this and it's actually used by you, then you're going to stick around for a long time. You're going to be happy. And this $500 fee is really dirt cheap in the scheme of things, considering these are people services. This isn't some scalable software. So for example, they're giving you up to 15 hours of migration services, and then they're meeting with you for these monthly strategy calls and quarterly calls. So in reality, this is more like, hey, you pay a little bit of money and then they're coming in and providing the services around this. So this is way cheaper than almost any services company can provide because they're essentially subsidizing this for you. But for companies that are really budget conscious, like, yeah, man, I'm already paying $3,000 for the software. I don't want to have to pay this mandatory fee on top. I want to self-implement it. Then this can be a little bit frustrating. The other thing that seems pretty old school and pretty frustrating in my mind is that they say, hey, yeah, you can try our software for free. So you click try for free. What does this do? Oh, you can try this for free by getting a free demo of Keap. So you can't spin up a free trial like almost every other software out there. You have to put in your information. Well, what's going to happen when you put in your information? Are you going to see that free demo of Keap? Nope. I got called by one of their business development representatives. There was no meeting on the books. He was late to call me. By the time we finally connected, then he wanted to ask me a bunch of questions about my business. Now, this is pretty standard for BDRs or SDRs in the software world. But you can imagine when I was expecting that I would see a free demo, that's not what I got. And so that was frustrating to me. Now, they are prepared to do a follow-up appointment to show you a demo. And they are going to follow up and let you get access to the system for an actual trial account that you can do. But you're not getting that right off the bat. So let me help you skip that part of the process. You can do so because after I talked to that sales rep, he then sent me an email, and the email I got was just, hey, go to try.keap.com. So very clearly in the past, Keap had this functionality available. Now they get you to force to talk to a sales rep. So instead, if you just want to go there without talking to sales, you can do so by going to try.keap.com and plugging in your email, and this will set up the trial for you. Now, just to kind of recap, if you want to take a look at Keap and how it compares to other software platforms out there, I know Keap often kind kind of talks about themselves as this all-in-one system and might compare to like a HubSpot, but I kind of view Keap as being in the same room of like a Honeybook or Dubsado, where it's really good for service-based businesses. Obviously, you can draw your own conclusions here. So come on over to our website. We're on SoftwareFinds.com right now if you want to check this out. So one of the things we can do here is check out our charts in comparison of these platforms with one another. So let me hover over here on Keap. And so you can see if we're looking at something like value against configurability, then we're kind of on the lower end here. But if we change this to something like ease of use against configurability, here's where it gets pretty awesome. So you can see that compared to other platforms, we actually can configure more about it, and it's relatively easy to use. So this is always something to keep in mind if you want to compare some of those characteristics against each other. And so I ask myself all these different questions when I evaluate things. So on the value end of things, we're kind of in the middle here in terms of how we're looking at the platform. Now, it is affordable typically in the medium and upper range because you're not paying quite as much per user because we don't have all those higher end tiers. So I think it's really good when you get into that middle range. But at the low range, again, it's tough because they're charging you for 2 users right off the bat, and they're charging that $250 price point. And so it's not quite as accessible on the value side as other software is. Then we get to impact. And hey, some of the cool stuff about this is that it reduces our need for multiple solutions, right? You don't have to pay for Calendly. You don't have to use an outside tool like QuickBooks. You could do all your invoicing directly on the platform. So this can replace some of those tools. You don't have to have a CRM and an email marketing automation platform. You're doing it all in one. So that part of it's really good. But still, as you continue to scale and grow, you add more team members to your team. This is not going to have the same business impact when you have all those different team members as some additional platforms. Configurability, this is pretty solid, especially if you're comparing it against other kind of service provider tools. Their automation functionality is kick butt. We talked about that already. They've got a great Zapier connector. Their integration library is kind of so-so, but the fact that you can create all of these automations, you've got good custom fields, that means that configurability score is going to be higher than others. I think this is really easy to get started with. And then pricing transparency, pretty solid here. We've got information about all that pricing up front. There aren't all these little hidden upsells that you might find in other platforms like High Level. Here you can see they're very public about the pricing of their phones, for example. So included, you get messages, you get a number of minutes here, and then you can upgrade as you need it if you need additional lines or additional texting. But the fact that that's included, they're transparent about that. That means that transparency overall is really good. It's just that we want people to be able to test software and use it, not just get convinced into something by a sales team. So let's talk about who Keap is the best fit for. If you're a service-based business, if you're a relatively small to medium-sized business, and you're looking for an all-in-one management system for your business, I think Keap is a great fit. You're not going to get all the bells and whistles of other platforms, but I think for this use case of service-based businesses, you really can't go wrong. And who is Keap not a good fit for? If you're on one end of the spectrum as a really small business, you're a solo person or you've got a couple people on your team, then that $250 a month is kind of a lot to start with. Alternatively, if your business is growing really quickly, you need some more of those advanced features like custom objects, you want more integrations to other pieces or kind of more of a best of breed type integration mentality, then I think Keap is not quite sophisticated enough for those larger teams. And so at the end of watching this video, if you're still not quite sure which system is the right one for you, come check out our website at SoftwareFinds.com where we have lots of comparisons and reviews.